Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids and we're back for some more Mardek, and of course last time we took out the Bone Demon in this here chest, that being another one of the end game optional bosses, and got me thinking, if we were to try to compare some of the optional bosses like the Bone Demon to the Security Demon and the Red Dragon, I guess you could include the Trilobite Warriors in that list as well, but those being the optional bosses that we fought thus far, Trilobite Warrior definitely comes in at the bottom of that list. Technically speaking, they do get stronger with each subsequent warrior that you fight, but then I would probably say that after that comes either the Bone Demon or the Red Dragon. Of course, we used a different strategy for the two of them. Red Dragon, we spent a little bit more time trying to, make a point of learning the ability that it really did not want to use against Legion, and then we saw that the Bone Demon used it almost immediately on Legion. So, yeah, in that sense, that maybe skews our perception of it a little bit, at least based on the fights that we had here. The thing about the Security Demon that I think definitely makes it top the list, at least of those enemies there, is that you need to fight it early on, otherwise you get your Gold Warport Pass and you can't ever encounter it again. So for that reason, because there's that timing aspect to it, it means that you have to fight it when you're low level, and so I think that means that the Security Demon probably does win that prize of most difficult enemy, at least of the ones we fought thus far. However, we're on our way to a few more. Now, I'm going to stop back off at Lifewood, because if you remember, we were talking about how recently we picked up the fairies, and actually, don't think we're going to want to teleport here. We might just... I don't know if the most efficient way is going to be to teleport to maybe even the Earth Temple, technically speaking, and then backtrack. What we want to do is go to the center of Lifewood, and then we're going to go over to the left from there and make our way back to the Fairy Village, because we're going to turn in all but the Yellow Fairy. Remember, the Yellow Fairy is the one that gives us the automatic haste, and that is extremely powerful, so we're going to want to hold on to that at least for a little while longer so we can use it, when we're doing some of that optional content, some of the stuff that's most difficult. Make sure that we're headed back in the right direction, and the answer to that is no. In fact, on second thought, maybe this wasn't the best direction to go. Hold on. Double back. I take it back. We ought to just walk into the middle from the beginning. And, we can encounter a few of these guys, no problem. So, Elohim, we're still working on Battle to Balance. You're close to mastering that. And there we see that, it splits the damage. And, wow, okay, that's another ability for Legion to learn. That's 2 in a row, in fact. So, there you have it. As it turns out, a little bit of a back to school for Legion here. And then why don't we just make a point of, I would say remove Taint on Slinik to get rid of that poison, but maybe we make a point of dealing some damages first. And against these purple mantids, they are fire elemental, which is a little bit strange because we are, of course, in Lifewood where most enemies are earth. But here that means that we're going to want to use a water slash. And that might be enough to take this out. I would imagine it is. We have Battle to Balance, actually, which means that we're splitting the damage across all of them. Does that mean that both mantids react here? No, just one of them. In fact, I don't think that was technically the one that we hit, but okay, it's almost enough to wipe out all of our enemies, so in that sense it was interesting. It wasn't necessarily what I intended to do, but what Legion learned was Poison Sting, which of course is an ability we've seen many enemies use in the past, back in Chapter 2, most of all, where we saw a lot of different kinds of bees. That's what happened this time, and then the other one was this one right here, Ripping Slash, a slash attack which ignores defenses. So that's an interesting one, because of course we have run into several enemies recently that have really high defenses. It is non-elemental, and there are definitely a lot of those enemies with high defenses that are also 100% immune to non-elemental damage, so might not always work for that reason. And Legion here, I'm thinking you can probably just use the default attack, and that will probably take them both out. Yes, it will. No problem there, and we'll make a point of removing the poison now on Slinik. And Leaf of Life from her. So, let us do that right now. Move Taint on you. And let's just double check here. I think that we might have thrown on the Draco Crescent on Slinik here, but we did not put on Quarry Dragon, or Soul Strike for that matter, which we don't quite have the RP to do them both, but if to say we got rid of Quarry Human, we could put on Quarry Dragon, and I'll be honest, there aren't exactly many opportunities for us to put this to use, because, as you can probably tell, it's not every day that we fight dragons, so for that reason, we'll master it, yes, but it's mostly just for the sake of saying that we mastered it, and then we could perhaps take off Quarry Beast just to put on Soul Strike here, which on some occasions could be worthwhile, because remember that the Draco Crescent is normally Fire Elemental, so we could override that and turn it into Earth Elemental if we were to use this. So there might be some occasions on which we'd want to do that. Of course, if we could anticipate it and then unequip or re-equip that ability based on what kind of damage we're thinking we're going to want to do against types of enemies we're expecting to run into, then that would be best. For example, here in Lifewood, where there are a lot of Earth Elemental enemies, probably not the best option. But here, these Green Souls. Here's another example of enemies with high defenses, but also, unfortunately, 100% resistance to non-elemental damage. So for that reason, likely means that something like Ripping Slash is not going to be terribly effective. Could even Dolores Dirge, and I think we saw in the past that that can take out basically all these guys, perhaps in just one turn. But we're so close to mastering Battle to Balance, let's make a point of doing that just a few more times here. And there is another one, another ability that Legion just learned. That is, in fact, one of the benefits of using Battle to Balance is that I believe, even if technically speaking, Legion isn't the specific person that the enemies are targeting, because the skill is hitting everyone when we use Battle to Balance, it means that Legion can still learn it. So that way it is 4 times as likely for Legion to learn abilities, and that is quite helpful, because we saw, at least on 1 or 2 specific occasions, that was perhaps a significant factor. As for actually taking out the Green Souls, though, the answer is either light damage or fire damage, preferably light. Mardek, the moment you are using your Earth Sword, so that does mean we'd have to override that and probably turn it into fire here. How much damage can you do? I don't know. Give it a shot. Not quite enough, but we did split it across everyone, so everyone is low here. Then Legion, I mean, we can show you what the new abilities look like. Poison Sting. A little bit strange coming from a robot, but there it is for you. 0 damage, because I don't exactly think it's one of our higher damage abilities we're ever going to find on Legion, but it does have the chance of causing poison, as you might expect. And Slinick, let's just double check. If we were to use the default attack, these guys have 90% resistance to Earth. Remember, with the Soul Strike, that means that this will turn into an Earth Elemental attack, assuming that we hit our reaction. Even if it's showing the fire in the bottom right corner there, that's because, well, it's assuming that we won't hit our reaction. So, it is enough damage to get rid of 1, but the other ones are hanging on by a thread here. And Mardek, oh, do we still have the haste on you at the moment? We do, don't we? We are using the Yellow Berry, so that means that, yes, you went earlier, you can go again, and there's an example as to just why that is so good, because you dealt most of the damage, and then you followed up and finished everyone off as well. So that's great, and that is the reason why we're going to want to hold on to the Yellow Berry for sure. Let's head back over here. We will use this fairy to teleport back to the entrance, because as it turns out, I think that it's going to be most efficient for us to go this way. And then this fight, well, will we find other things that we can learn? Now, this is the Centaur that we were talking about previously. Does technically hold Magic Poker, which is pretty valuable. I think it costs 36,000 coins at one of the shops in Neuropolis. And I was talking about how one could make the case that it is perhaps worth farming it up in here, using things like Loot Finder to increase the chances of it dropping. We did ultimately, I believe, find one in the Earth Temple, so it ultimately wasn't necessary for us to do that. We're on a Battle to Balance here, and this will be us mastering it. But if you wanted to, say, make a point of getting a second one so that both Carla and Donovan could equip it simultaneously, then that is, at least from a cost efficiency standpoint, the best way to do it. But it could take a little while because it is a very low percentage chance to drop. So once you get Loot Finder on one, if not ideally multiple people, then that would certainly make things easier there. So remember, we are using Battle to Balance here, which means we probably ought to target the person who has the lowest defenses. And is that a Furry Biter or is that Centaur? It is a Furry Biter with air elemental damage, so if we were to say just use a quick air slash here, that is enough to take out everyone. Which is the benefit of having something like Battle to Balance, means that what would normally be a single target skill, if it has enough damage, can take out everyone like that. And there is Battle to Balance mastered there. And as for whether we ought to swap off this harp for a different one, I think we saw that, yeah, in terms of the reactions, Elwyn has not yet mastered this one, or if she has other harps somewhere, which I think she may, She's not mastered those either. I mean, that includes the ones on this harp here. Also includes the offensive reaction on this harp, but I think for the most part, what we're looking for is stronger harps, because what we see is the first one here has no attribute boosts, whereas this one here has 3 spirit and 2 agility. And remember that Elwian wanted her to be going first because she only helps the party when she's playing her song, so we want her to be doing that before everyone else goes. And then the spirit is typically something that will affect the overall power of all those spells. So for that reason, we want to make that as high as possible as well. So let's head on over to the parry area, which means that we will again need to go to the middle of the forest. And I bring that up about the harps because, well, you'll see why in a matter of moments, I'm sure. But let's head on up, and we will need to go to the left side here. This is the area we were looking for. Let's just save up or heal up real quick. But yeah, we need to go over to the main area and then to the left. And remember, Fairy Village is a little bit tough to get to. We will actually need to go into this dream circle here temporarily. That's the only way to gain access to the Fairy Village. And then once we get there, we will exit the Dream Realm. And more of the same here. We don't necessarily need to do Battle to Balance here, but it was awfully effective last time. Centaur is quick enough to go next, though, and, well, it heals everyone, so that's not bad. However, dealing damage to everyone, that's not as good. Mardek, if you were to use another air slash here and just take out one of the furry biters, once again, takes everyone out, heals everyone a little bit, but with a relatively high leech there with the high amount of damage. Okay, so let's head up in this direction here, and we are again looking for the Dream Circle to the right. That'll take us, of course, now into Dreamwood, and this is the route that we will have to follow to get into the Fairy Village. So a little while that we will be in Dreamwood here. And why are we going to the Fairy Village? Well, like we were saying, we were picking up those fairies earlier at the shop in the slums of Europolis. And we do want to hold on to the yellow fairy, like I was saying. But the other ones, we can turn those in, and it does technically mean that we won't fully complete the quest just yet, but I think we'll still find that it's worthwhile to do this partial completion at this stage, and you'll see why. So, the Whims next. Ooh, Dolores Dirge, it's going to be close. Might not quite deal enough damage. Did they go next? They do. Let's see how much damage this does. It's going to be enough to take out one, but not the other. The other one hits Slinic for a little bit of damage here, and we notably don't have Battle to Balance on at the moment. So if we were to use just a simple Earth Elemental attack with Mardek, default attack, it doesn't even matter if I miss my reaction, still take it out. Okay. So that one's down, and then if we head down this way, and loop around a little bit to the left, this will be the entrance to the Fairy Village. Except we are, of course, still in the Dreamwood version, and so we will need to swap back over. And we can still run into people here. Oh, including pixies. And we didn't necessarily prep for this, and every single person is confused. Legion notably did learn that ability, so there's something to be said for that, I suppose. And now, well, Legion was one person who did not have the confusion, and then proceeded to get reconfused, and then hit himself, and then some people are fortunately still targeting the Pixie. Just remember the Pixie has really high evasion, so we aren't necessarily guaranteed to hit it. Oh, I was going to say, we'd love if people were to lose that confusion. Mardek got silenced, though. Elwian, no longer confused. Neither is Mardek. Okay, Mardek, you're silenced, which means you can't use any spells, but you can still use these physical abilities here. So if we were to say, just take a look here. Oh, goodness. 100% resistance to all these. I mean, that does mean, Mardek, you're not going to have any way of dealing damage with any of this stuff. So, we could look at items, see if there's anything there. Potted Cactus. Notably, we can try lobbing it at someone for spiny non-elemental damage. If you don't have any resistance to non-elemental damage, that might be worth a shot here. Because otherwise, the only other person who is not currently confused... Oh, actually, we have a couple others. Elwian and Legion are both okay. So, notably, Legion does go next, and Legion will have access to spells. And I think that because evasion does not apply to spells, that means that Legion should be capable of bailing us out here, at least in theory. So Mardek, you can attack it. It's not going to do anything even if you do land a hit. Legion, we're looking for this here to be the difference maker. Oh, except Spirit Nova? I was going to say, we have a spell that is ideally either dark or light elemental because, remember, fire, water, air, earth, that's not going to work. So really, we're looking for light or dark. And, well, Ether is definitely not a good idea either. So, the thing is, all of our dark abilities here are all attacks, not spells. And it could deal damage, yes, it just means that it would require that we actually hit. The evasion would matter, so that does make it a little bit tricky here. So, would we actually use Adelgast to confuse the Pixie? Is the Pixie immune to confusion? It is not. Hold on. Can this work? We did confuse it. Will it attack itself? Slinick notably attacked Mardek and became unconfused. Even though I hit the reaction, Mardek still took 0 damage. Thank you, Mardek, for having strong defenses. Otherwise, anyone else probably would have just gotten obliterated. So, Mardek, you are still not in a great place here. Slinick, you're also only going to be dealing fire and earth damage, so you're not terribly helpful either. I think Mardek probably do go for the potted cactus here. We were very much unprepared for this one. Okay, not enough damage, notably. Pixie is still confused, but up to attack Legion and does have regen, so it did heal a bit in the process there. So, do we have any other ways in which to damage it through other means? Yes, we do. Now that we have Elwyn back, we can use Dolores Dirge. This was the answer in the past. If we use that, its automatic damage cannot be resisted, cannot be evaded. So, in that way, it is the best solution, I think. Most reliable solution, at least, assuming that you can keep Elwyn up and not confused. Which is perhaps easier said than done, but here we go. Back into the actual fairy village, and let's make a point of perhaps healing up a bit here. And let's make a point of picking up the items that we're looking for. I think it was Donovan who swiped all the fairies. Yes. Let's take those. And so what we're going to do is, like I said, we're going to turn in the red fairy, the blue fairy, purple fairy, and the green fairy. And then we're just going to want to make sure that we do not turn in the yellow fairy. The green fairy almost looks yellow. Let's just make a point of throwing this in our stash here, just to make sure we don't accidentally turn this in. So as a reminder, yellow fairy gives auto haste. That's why that is so good, because that means it go in twice as often and is almost, meaning that characters are twice as strong as they would normally be. Does mean that, of course, you would be unable to put on another accessory here that might be boosting up your defenses or resistances in some other way, but other than that, it is extremely strong. Red Fairy's Auto Berserk, that's not terribly concerning, that's not that great, so we can probably get rid of that, no problem. Auto Shield is not a huge deal. I mean, it's nice to have it on automatically at the beginning, yes, but Mardek can, of course, apply those using his shield ability, so not a huge deal there. Same thing with Magic Shield. As for regen, Mardek can throw that on as well. So the reason why haste is so good is not only that it's so powerful, but it's also that Mardek does not have a way of applying that one. The only way we can apply it at the moment is by using the Speedy Juice Potion, which we have a couple of at the moment, I believe, but they're relatively hard to come by. So, let's make a point of talking to the fairy leader here. Oh, ho, harum. What's that there, sparkling, glittering, you hold in your paw? That purple fairy? He's one of my missing friends. Return him, won't you? So we could, you know, just decide to hold on to it if we thought that it was more worthwhile for us to use the fairy for its combat purposes, but if we turn it in here... Rapturous day, Kalu, Calais. I chortle with joy, so happy. I dreaded him lost. If we turn it in, we get a Dreamstone. For your heroism, I would like to gift you this. Please, cherish it, friend. They are not all free. Poor fairies remain out there. Please, you must find them. So we turned in one, but if we continue to speak to the fairy leader here... Oh, ho, harum. What's that there, sparkling, glittering, you hold in your paw? Ah, the green fairy. He's one of my missing friends. Return him, won't you? So we will go one by one here. And that is significant because, of course, if you found that, well, you want to make a point of turning in one of the fairies but not the other, makes it a little bit easier for you to be deliberate about which ones you're turning in and which ones you're not turning in. So I made a point of putting the yellow fairy back in our item storage just to be absolutely certain we wouldn't accidentally turn it in here, but this is another way to sort of check yourself. So sure, let's turn in the green fairy. Rapturous day, Kalu, Calais. I chortled with joy, so happy. I dreaded him lost. For your heroism, I would like to gift you this. Please, cherish it, friend. So that time we got some sheet music. So that's another new thing that we got from the fairy leader. Now there are 3 fairies remaining. And, well, we can speak to you again. Turn in the blue fairy this time. And this time, we will get an astral harp. And yes, that is why I was saying perhaps worth making a point of mastering up as many things as we could with Elwian, both with the harp and with her sheet music, because we are, of course, now picking up more sheet music and another harp. But there are still 2 fairies remaining. Okay, let's turn one more in, that being the red fairy. So let's do that, and then this time we get a Scarab of Health. And what is that? Let's check those things out. There's of course still 1 fairy remaining, yes, but we are deliberately going to hold on to that for the time being. And if we were to say, double check as to what we just picked up, what did we get in return? We got Sheet Music 2, which is for Vigorous March, which boosts the physical power of all allies while it plays. So notably, we have Solid Sonata already, which boosts our physical defense, but this improves our physical attack. So it's an offensive song, and we don't have many, if any, of those at this stage. So that's certainly something we'll want to put on here, and now that we've mastered Battle to Balance, we can do just that. No worries. Then we have the Astral Harp, which will be the strongest harp for Elwian. It has 36 base attack versus 24 on her current harp, so much better in that way. Not that she's going to be attacking physically all that often, but it is a harp with strings made from silver cords which used to harness souls to their corporeal shells. It has a haunting, echoey effect when played, as if the sound is coming from another realm of existence entirely. That's a little grim, but I suppose that's kind of thematic given how it's Ether Elemental. And it does have, I mean, we should probably swap on over to Elwian just to see if she has actually learned these abilities or not, because it does have the plus 30% offensive reaction, and yes, Mardek has learned that, but Elwian certainly has not. Also, resist Ether 50% defensive reaction, not a passive, notably not a passive. So if you combine this with the passive that she has learned already, then that means that as long as you hit your reactions, for physical attacks, she's taking 0 damage from Ether Elemental attacks, and that is perhaps quite useful. Also, does have plus 20% experience, which is interesting, because we are getting that from the Kendry, though this is the one other place, I believe, where you can pick it up, so we don't necessarily need to have the Astral Harp and the Kendry up on simultaneously, so once we get this, we can swap on over. And it also gives plus 10 Spirit and 5 Agility, so like I was saying before, sure, we're picking up additional attack damage on the upgraded harps, yes, but unlikely that Elwian will be doing much in the way of physical attacks. It is largely that getting a bunch more Spirit means that she's going to have much more potent songs, and Agility means that she's more likely to go first. Oftentimes that is still the case, but this will be more of a sure thing in this case. So, the thing is, we have not yet mastered all the defensive reactions, or offensive reactions for that matter, on her old harps. So, we will, at least in theory at some point, want to make a point of doing that. It's just that, well, it's not the easiest thing to level up. We could, say, make a point of going up against some things like Mantids, which tend to have those reactions where if we attack them with physical attacks, they will respond. That's one of the ways to guarantee that you get someone to target the person you want them to target. But I think until we make a point of doing that, at least for now, let's throw on the Astral Harp. So again, that means that at this point we have the strongest weapon for Slinik, strongest weapon for Elwian. We did just pick up the strongest weapon for Zack when we fought the Bone Demon, and so perhaps we'll want to get him in quite soon. And we could even, say, make a point of doing that right now. So we swap out party members. We have maybe done all we need to do at the moment with Legion. We wanted to make a point of having Legion in our party when we fought the Bone Demon so that we could learn that ability, and we have learned several abilities even here in Lifewood as well. So Zack, if we put you on, you are actually level 24, is quite low. We want to make a point of, well, mostly upgrade the double sword, yes, but some miscellaneous items would be useful as well. So let's go to item storage here. So Legion has the double sword here, so let's take this, throw it on Zack, and just for comparison's sake, we were previously using an item that had 34 base attack, whereas the Yin and Yang has 46, so much better there. And then, of course, the additional attributes, same crit chance, but new skills as well. So, we'll make a point of throwing some of that stuff on. Let's take a closer look at Zack here, and I suppose we'll look once more as well once we put on the other gear, but we do have these things that you've already mastered on offensive reactions here. Not sure we necessarily have much to change, besides maybe taking off Soul Strike and put it on something like Flurry Undead or Flurry Insect. On the defensive side, though, we did just pick up the 50% evasion, which is ginormous. So if we were to, say, get rid of damage soap, 10 and 20, that's not a huge deal at this stage. But collectively, across these two, to have 70% evasion, that's crazy stuff. The only other person who can get to that point would be Elwian. She has plus 50% evasion on one of her items that only she can equip, and then there is the item that Solar started with, that is an accessory that we can put on anyone, and that does also give us the 20% evasion, in addition to the bandit leather that we saw very early on, just that not quite everyone can equip the bandit leather. So, we have a few sources of this one. That's not as difficult to get. Zack, for other things, I think, probably want to revisit the passive side once we throw on some accessories, because we might be able to throw in some new stuff there. And, like, for example, oh, you put on the +6 strength still and then didn't proceed to use the skill that it gives you? Okay, that's a little bit odd. We had it equipped here, but apparently just never used it. Okay, sure thing. Then, in that case, why don't we keep on doing that? If we take off agility, we in theory have 5 RP to spare. And have you done 20% experience? You have not. I'm thinking maybe we swipe the candidate though, because Zack, you do have some catching up to do in terms of experience. You've done a little bit to level this up, but you're not yet mastered there. So let's make sure that we have that. Elwian, of course, will still have a source of that ability because, well, she has it on the harp as well. And we maybe don't need to have +1 vitality at the moment if we can just throw on experience instead. Not too concerned about us running into any super strong enemies at the moment. It does mean that we need one more accessory for Zack and one more for Elwian. That's what we'd like to have here. I think we saw that Elwian, there were some things I thought that we really wanted you to have, and you very much do not. Like, you only have plus 10% HP, but not 20. I thought we had given you plus 20, but apparently not. Would mean we'd have to swap some things around in order to make room for that. You would not have the RP to do it at the moment, so maybe we hold off just a little while longer. And in that case, what is the answer? I think she has 4 RP remaining, and typically when people are in that territory, we're looking to throw on status immunities. So let's look for something that can give us some of that. Could have Insomnia, which, Elwian, talk to me. Have you mastered this? You have not. Let's give that a shot then. Also gives a little bit of spirit, which is, like we were saying before, kind of helpful for you. So, sure, let's go that route. And then Zack, we're looking for something else here, and what would we like to have for you? Let's double check your skills, see if there's anything that is obviously missing. You have HP, 10 and 20%. You have those. Suppleness you got partially there, but did not yet master. Bim, similar story. You have +2 and +3 strength. You don't have +1 strength, which is usually not a huge priority, but you actually don't have a lot of RP here. So we were to say take off +2 strength and put on +1. Obviously that means that in the short term it is objectively worse, but just so that long term we can have all these strength boosting skills mastered, and Zack can throw on any and all of them if we'd like, then we have that option. So that means we're gonna need one of these guys. I'm very surprised that Zack has not yet done this. And actually, Mardek also needs one more spot here. I mean, that was originally the yellow fairy, so we could throw that back on now that we are no longer going to talk to the fairy leader. We're not at risk of accidentally turning that in. So let's go to Zack, put on +1 strength. You will have a little bit of RP to burn, unless we throw on a little bit of agility as well. So let's do that. And then Mardek, for you. Then we put on the yellow pair here, give you haste, because why not? And then from here on out, I think we can probably just warp on out of here. And what I'm thinking is, above and beyond what we've done here, as we are looking to basically pick up all the best gear that we can before the very end of the game, there's still one other place where we can do some of that. Remember that we were crafting a bit with the, well, blacksmith in Zantusi, and tell you what, we did pick up some mithril ore recently from the Miasmal Citadel, and we only have one of it at the moment, and it is rare, yes, but it is technically something that you can get more of. Remember that we fought several mithril golems, and those guys can drop it. It's unlikely, but it is possible. So for that reason, I think I'm okay with us using what mithril we have. I think it only takes one to create the mithril plate mail, but you know what? We are about to find out. So this is one of the few items that we've not yet created. It does cost precisely 1 mithril ore, a purple conch, 3 mirror elixirs, which, okay, that is a fairly rare potion. It's one that gives us the physical and magic shield in one turn. And then an Evening Star, again, is also an item that is uncommon, but those same enemies, the Mithril Golems in the Miasmal Citadel, they can drop them as well. So let's just make sure that we have our Mithril Ore, which I'm not necessarily sure that we do at the moment. We might have put that back in item storage, or it might be in someone else's inventory, because I've not seen it right now. Oh, the other thing is, I don't think we checked out what the Scarab of Health did. That was another thing that we picked up from the Fairy Leader there. It is a legendary artifact with amazing power. It grants the wearer the power of regeneration constantly and wards against status effects. So, 5 defense, 5 magic defense from an accessory that is similar to some of the defenses and magic defenses that we would find on a chest plate. So that is amazing already. Also gives auto regen, and so we saw that the green fairy gave that, yes, but this also gives 5 defense, 5 magic defense, and a little bit of resistances for a bunch of status effects. So this is one of the best accessory items, along with things like the yellow fairy. So you have both these on. Say, for example, if we were to take off the emerald dangle here, just for example's sake, we would have auto haste on Mardek, so he'd go twice as often. He'd have regen, so he would be healing every turn. Also have +5 vitality, so higher maximum life, and a little bit of resistances to a bunch of statuses, and the 5 defense, 5 magic defense. All in all, makes for an extremely strong item. And so, yeah, combine these two and you can turn one person into a bit of a one-person army. So we'll hold off for now, but we definitely do want to make a point of throwing this on someone. The only downside of it is, I mean, it doesn't have any skills that you can learn from it, so, I mean, once you're in Mardek's boat where you've mastered just about everything there is to master, then there's not much reason not to use the Scarab of Health, because, yeah, it is, in some cases, the best in slot, or very close to it. But, as for right now, we're talking about trying to make the Mithril Plate Mail. That does have a lot of defenses as well. 15 physical defense, in addition to having a new Soak 30 ability that I think we've seen on some chest plates, notably the stole that we created here, that we've not yet used on anyone, I don't think. But this is another source of that skill, and it is unusual, so in addition to having a few other things that are of note here. So let's make sure that we go back to pick up our Mithril Ore. And I believe there is a save crystal not far away. We were holding on to most of our crafting materials previously on Mardek, but I think we got rid of some of them in order to make room for some potions and things of that sort, so that when we were doing big boss fights, we were able to, well, have those potions. So, okay, so here's the Mithril Ore. Like I said, we only have one at the moment, but we could theoretically get more if we went back to the Miasmal Citadel and just round out a few more levels, and it is a good place to do that, so it's not a bad idea. So we take this, we have the mirror elixirs. I think we needed conches as well, we needed an evening star. We might have everything at this point, because that's everything that I can remember that we need to create this thing, so we're very close, if not there. May just take one more trip back to our save crystal. But the Mithril Ore, just pick that up. Purple conches, those, we did find that you can get an infinite number of those as well, and that they drop from enemies that you can encounter in the Dream Realm. So this one, rare but possible to drop. This one, rare but possible to drop. The Mirror Elixirs, I actually don't recall as to whether you can buy those from any shopkeepers. Like I said, they are quite rare, but you might be able to get them from some of the shopkeepers that you find in very unusual places. Like, remember, the one in the Gosnor Dream Realm shop? Not sure necessarily if he's selling these, but those types of shopkeepers might. And then the Evening Star as well. Also something that, yes, rare, but you can get more of. And here we have it, the Mithril Plate Mail. So, this is a big one. And we probably do want to throw this on Mardek, because Mardek has not yet mastered damage soak 30. And he was using the Flame Mail mostly for the absorb fire damage. I was making a point of loading up on fire resistance, dark resistance, and earth resistance for the Bone Demon fight, so I suppose if we go back to that for a second, if you guys are playing along with me, and you guys are having trouble with that fight, those are the 3 resistances that matter. So, made a point of doing that. Flame Mail is certainly helpful in that regard. But now with the Bone Demon down, we can switch over to the Mithril Plate Mail. Let's make a point of throwing that ability on Mardek. And how is your RP looking here? We could, well, get rid of damage soak 10 and 20 to make room for 30. I mean, they are functionally the same, but in this way, it gives us some flexibility long-term once we do master damage soak 30. That does mean that, well, if we have 3 RP to spare, then we can throw this on. If we gain 1 more RP, then we can throw this on, and yeah, it just gives us the ability to customize a little bit more, depending on just how much RP we have remaining. So, with that, I think this is probably a good place for us to wrap up here. One other place that I'm thinking we ought to go is, yes, we did a lot of crafting here with the blacksmith. That now means that we have crafted, I believe, everything that we've said that we want to make, because this, I think we already have, or at least can drop from the enemies in Saul's dungeon. We've made plenty of sting sticks. Silver axe, I think I did double check. You can in fact get these to drop from axolotl chieftains, I think, which are in the water temple. So again, if you wanted to get one of these to drop and didn't want to, say, use silver ore, which is a limited resource, then you can make a point of farming them. The eagle wings are possibly the second strongest of Zack's double swords, but as you see here, it is weaker than the yin and yang. 46 base damage versus just 40, and this does cost a gold ore, and that is limited. So for that reason, we are definitely going to deliberately pass on these. Steel Soul, we made one of them, because that also uses silver ore, which is limited, but it does give us the Soak 30 ability, and it is the only way for Solar to get that. We got the Regal Crown from King Cuthbert, so we already had one of these, so definitely don't want to use gold ore on that. Canderithope, same deal, also limited, also don't want to use it there. Made plenty of Skull Helms, did make a Mardek M Helm, that did cost a gold ore and a Canderithope and a Golden Conch, and Light Essence might also be limited. So this is one where I really like the item, so I thought it was worthwhile, but if you're a little bit light on gold or Light Essence or Canderithopes, Golden Conches, then you could potentially pass on this. Made some of the Astral Wanderer's Garbs, or at least one of them. And that one does not use any things that are limited. Maybe the other essences, but that's not really in as high demand as the other ones, so not a huge deal there. We just made the Mithril Plate Mail. We were talking about that. And then we've made each of these shields. So yes, for that reason we've made everything that we intend to make here. But remember, there is also the ability for us to use Meriador's crafting bench back in Gosnor to make some items for Legion and Meriador himself, because those are, for the most part, the only places that we're going to be able to pick up weapons and, at least in Legion's case, armor that they can equip. So we'll make a point of doing that soon, and then we have some more endgame content to take on. So, with that, I'll catch you guys next time.